The Kenyan Supreme Court is presently ruling on constitutional changes proposed by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his allies ahead of a crucial elections in August. The reforms, popularly known as the Building Bridges Initiative, aims to expand the executive and would be the biggest change to Kenya's political system since the introduction of a new constitution in 2010. A 7-judge bench at the Supreme Court will weigh the legality of the wide-ranging proposals following their rejection last year by the High Court and Court of Appeal, which said Kenyatta could even be sued in a civil court for launching the process. Kenyatta had argued that the initiative would make politics more inclusive and help end repeated cycles of election violence in the East African nation. We are now being joined by senior analyst at South African Times, Mark Bichachi, for further details on the judgment and how it could affect the upcoming presidential elections in Kenya. I want to say welcome to the program this afternoon, Mark. Thank you for joining us. First of all, can you let us know, can you give us some more details about the judgment and also how Kenyans are feeling today about the judgment?
Well, the judgment has been waited for a long time. It is addressing 7 matters before the court. Chief of which is, of course, whether the BBI amendment as proposed by the BBI task force was one initiated by the president. Can the president, in that context, initiate a referendum? And secondly, it is whether the president can be sued. Third, it is whether our electoral body had enough quorum to make a decision concerning the BBI. Those are the key issues, and the ruling has just concluded. And the country has been on tenterhooks because the BBI does portend a great part of the election campaign, sloganeering and campaigning for the 2022 elections that is slated for August this year.
Well, we understand that Chief Justice Martha Karumbu Kume, I hope I'm saying her name right, has actually agreed with 2 out of the 7 issues raised by the BBI, and also agreed with the Court of Appeal and the High Court, saying that the president cannot initiate constitutional reforms as long as he is serving as head of state. From what you've seen today, do you think he will actually be sued based on this action that he took?
No. So he cannot be sued because the ruling very clearly says that the president cannot be sued for acts of omission or commission during this time. What the court has ruled is that number 2, in count number 2, the president cannot initiate a popular initiative to review the constitution, and number 3, the president cannot be sued. So those two things do protect the president, and those are the matters that have been disallowed. The rest of the matters, if you'd allow me to read, whether there's a basic structure to the doctrine, a basic structure doctrine that applies to the Constitution of Kenya, the judges have ruled that there is no basic structure. The other one is number 4, which says whether the IBC was legally constituted when it processed the BBI bill, and it was legally constituted. Number 5 is whether the proposed 70 new constituencies are legal. The court agrees that the people can amend the constitution and add the number of constituencies, and whether the threshold of public participation was reached. The court was satisfied that it was reached, and whether there can be multiple issues on the ballot paper. The court did agree that you can have multiple issues on a ballot paper. So this is a mixed bag for the president and the BBI team as a whole, but it does give a major blow to the BBI since it sees the president as a promoter, and he is not allowed to be a promoter according to the ruling of the court.
So what impact is this ruling likely to have on the presidential and parliamentary polls in August later this year?
Well, it's as I said before, it's a mixed bag. So it is definitely going to be a campaign issues because some of the issues within the BBI remain critical to the various political actors. For example, the BBI had proposed to devolve more funds to the to the counties. The BBI had also proposed that we have a continued push to create more constituencies within the more populated areas of our country, including Central Kenya, from which the president hails from. And in Central Kenya, the issue of one man, one shilling equal representation in the budget is a big deal. So the issues within the BBI will be front and center in the campaigns. They'll be front and center as to who wins the office, and whoever will be president will have to deal with the issues that the BBI had proposed. And if it is Raila Odinga who wins, then you can be sure there'll be a push, at least from the Jubilee side of that coalition, to ensure that the BBI is implemented.
And what are the implications for Mr. Kenyatta himself? Do you think this will stop him from trying to seek other legal or, legal avenues to try and hold on to power?
Well, he has never held on to power. He has stated clearly that he was going to step down come 2022. The BBI was never an instrument to change the term limits of the president. That was never changed, and it was not even an opportunity for him to be prime minister. So this is not going to affect his plans of retirement. He was going to retire anyway. The only thing that this is going to change is the format in which campaigning is done for the presidency of this country.
Now, one of the things that President Kenyatta mentioned was that this initiative, which he spearheaded, would make politics more inclusive. What percentage of Kenyans would you say shared in that, perspective? And I'd also like to ask, based on the ruling of Chief Justice Martha Karumbu Kume, I know that she agreed with 2 out of the 7 contentious issues, but I'd like you to throw more light on the other 5, if you have that information.
Well, I just read all the 7 counts, and to be clear, that number one, the amount of popularity this particular initiative enjoyed can be seen by how many people support the current prime minister in his position as running for president, which is above now 50%. So if you were to consider how many people support the former prime minister and his campaign in running for office, then you would say that 50% of Kenyans supported the BBI, if I was to infer that way. But if you were to look at the number of county assemblies and the votes in the National Assembly, then you would get a higher number of around 60% who would say that they supported the president and supported the BBI, because over 70% of the county assemblies did pass this particular bill. Now, when it comes back to the question of the Chief Justice and the ruling of all the 7, because we've just received the ruling of all the 7, it is 5 counts that were accepted, it is 2 counts that were considered unacceptable, and one of those ones that has disqualified the BBI is that the president cannot be the prime mover of a popular initiative. So that is the biggest blow to the BBI. Now, what does that do in terms of the population? The population is split. There is a part of the population that is celebrating because the president, of course, is supporting the person of Raila Odinga, but there is a part of it that is disheartened because they felt the BBI represented what they wanted to see in the Republic of Kenya moving forward.
So, Mark, is this the end of the BBI, or could lawmakers in the National Assembly reintroduce it and probably vote on it?
Well, it is very clear based on this that the BBI is dead in the water simply because it is deemed to have been initiated by the president himself. But its recommendations and whatever changes it wanted to make can be picked up by literally almost any other Kenyan, and take it through the same process and have it voted for. Because the only technicality upon which it has been disapproved is that the president is deemed not to be in the capacity capacity to move a popular initiative as it should be done by the people. Now, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta is retiring. Now, the question remains to be asked is, once he is out of office, can he push for the BBI? And the answer is yes, he can.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if he'll actually do that. But of course, we're very appreciative of you joining us right here on Newsday. Mark Bichachi, thank you so much.